Student loan debt is in the news again as the government is doing a big push to collect after everything that was done to pause or delay student loans through COVID. It's now 2025. Before COVID, I released an episode about my own student loan debt journey. We are doing a throwback episode. We are re-releasing the episode I did years ago about student loan debt. Now, if you are new to me or new to the show, I want you to know that the reasons that I share my story is because humans have been learning from story since the beginning of time. And in our most recent modern history, what I think has shifted is we have learned from science and study and academia instead of sitting around the fire, sharing wisdom amongst our loved ones. I think we need both of those things, not one or the other. My podcast, my work, I have a higher education, I have a master's degree, but I very much value and see that what's missing in the mental health conversation is real connection and real human to human sharing of how we grow wisdom, the mistakes that we make all along the way. All of us are born little bitty babies, right? We are going to make so many mistakes. With the student loan conversation in the news again, I thought it was time to have our very first throwback episode, our very first re-release. Every single week since 2018, we have put out brand new content. This is the first time we're re-releasing. I want you to know that if you're listening to me, you are a deep person. There is absolutely no doubt. So when you listen, it's not just about listening to the topic at hand. In today's episode, the offering I have for you is to be able to look back and reflect with me. It's been quite the experience to do this podcast and to see myself grow year after year after year. What I was uncomfortable with earlier, what I'm now more comfortable with just by putting myself in front of a camera and in front of a microphone and giving myself permission to be a beginner as a podcaster, be a beginner as an introvert, putting herself out there to try to connect with you, to teach from my hard-earned wisdom so that maybe yours doesn't have to be so hard. So this is a reflection for me. And reflection is an interesting beast, and all highly sensitive people reflect. There are healthy ways to reflect, and there are self-abusive, cruel ways to reflect. As I like to say, perfectionism is a sneaky bastard. And I've witnessed thousands of highly sensitive people at this point in my career reflect through unhealed perfectionism, through shame that they don't even know is shame, through blame and regret as a self-flogging exercise instead of a healthier empathy, ownership, compassion, understanding, and allowing reflection to be a learning experience, a growth exercise. Just so you know, the smarter you are, the smarter your shame, that drives the self-flogging. That's why it can be so tricky to unravel. Highly sensitive people seem to have a messed up superpower in justifying self-talk that smartly bullies and finds excellent reasons like this. Well, I could have done better, to justify the self-abuse. And this is a hidden reason so many highly sensitive people live in survival and exhaustion. Yes, that was started by childhood trauma, by unfair struggle and hardship, but it gets continued by the patterning that neglect or abuse begins. It is our adult responsibility to unravel that. As unfair as that is, it is the truth, and it is the only thing that we can own to be able to set ourselves free. We don't have to own that the abuse happened to us, but boy, do we need to own our healing and our forward motion. It is one of the most uncomfortable things for me still to listen to myself. If I was an actor, I would be one of those actors that filmed the movie and then never watched the movie. Because just like you in your reflections, it's very easy to have that old critical voice show up. And I can hear it in every way that I am imperfect, every way I could have delivered a message with more clarity or more heart or more motivation or more useful information or more encouragement. There's so many different ways, if I were to allow it, that my mind could come up with a, hey, Nikki, if you're reflecting, it's going to be a not good enough festival for the inner critic. Sensitive people out there, we have to put our foot down in our minds, so to speak, with this dynamic. Healthy reflection is positive, y'all. It's forward motion, it's learning, and it's incorporating age, experience, and hard-earned wisdom. It is unfair, wrong, cruel, even mean to look back and self-flog instead of to look back and learn. I hope by sharing myself and some of my stories, my growth, my mistakes, my uncomfortableness, my imperfection, my journey, that it helps you see you, that it helps you find more of what you're looking for in this life. It helps you become kinder, more understanding. And when you understand yourself more with kindness, guess what happens naturally? You understand other people through kindness, even other people that grate on your nerves, that energy vampire, that you think today suck your life force. So this work that you do for you, I promise you, is also for every other interaction and person in your life. You get to have healthy reflection if you allow yourself to grow into it. So here is what I've heard, what I saw, what I felt listening to this episode in this re-release. This is about my own student loans, and they had been such a monkey on my back. And that's pretty much the story we hear, right? For all of my young adulthood. Those of you who have been with me on this journey since the beginning, you know that I've had so many other things from my family that made my early young adulthood very, very difficult. To have this added layer from the intention of bettering my life, doing the right thing when I was told all I had to do was get to college to make my life better, is quite the difficult, large horse pill to swallow. So the first thing I really heard and saw was that our healing, it really does happen in layers. And it can't happen any faster than it happens. We can't see the things about ourselves or our recoveries all at once. And we need not feel freaked out when we have a new realization. Sometimes our own psyches won't let us have a thought, won't let us make a connection until we're in a safer circumstance to be able to think on it, feel through it, and integrate it into who we are now from a place of safety. Integrate it into our life story. And then so we can process, own, carry forward what we learn from it. So when I listened to this old episode from years ago, I realized that I told you I was stressed getting into college. And this hit me as wildly downplaying what was happening. So I also hear that I wasn't yet comfortable showing you that layer of myself, being public with that, exposing myself basically, which means I still felt a little shame about it. I hadn't yet written the chapter in my memoir that I will finish and publish one day. There's a chapter that I wrote that made me find the word runaway. Now, I had framed this to myself and anyone it came up with since that time. I left home at 17. As I left home, I left. Can you hear it? That's my empowerment. Even I think some healthy pride. It's my own ownership of what I never should have had to have done. I never should have had to own that I needed to leave my family of origin, my family home. But I left. I took myself out of the abuser's hands. A few years ago when I wrote this chapter, I realized as I was grappling with finding the language to express myself that I was the absolute pure definition of a runaway. But I had never, ever, ever thought of myself in that way. And it really hit me like a ton of bricks. I knew because I could feel that part of my psyche hadn't allowed me this word, this descriptor, because I needed to hold on to the strength of I chose to leave instead of facing the utter sadness that I had to escape and essentially run away. And when we run away, just like if you got scared by a loud noise or an animal right now, you would just haul ass. We go towards nothing except away. This realization unleashed a wave of sadness as I was writing this chapter, a deeper down sadness. At the surface, there had been anger and sort of a layer of, I'm fine, I'm okay. My strength. And it's not that that's a lie. That's absolutely 100% true. It's just that we really are, like they say in therapy, like the onion. And we have to peel the layers, and we can't peel the center before peeling the outer layers. It's also true that when you've had a lot of trauma in your life, that can feel like an endless onion. There's some peace and some grief for that too. So much of our healing comes down to a permission to acknowledge simple truths. I was a runaway, and that is almost nothing but purely sad. As you have realizations, as your own onion peels, I want you to know that it's okay to unravel this. It's okay to spend time looking at this. Sometimes society says, hey, just let it go. Quit living in the past. Are you obsessing on the past? We don't have to take that in. There's a balance there. We want to be moving forward, want to be living lives from thriving mode. But we also, while we're doing that, will go through these many layers to get to the core of who we are, to get to the core of what it is to heal and take care of ourselves. As you have realizations, I want you to feel positive about that if you can, if you'll let yourself. This is your body releasing its layers and the mind releasing its layers. Maybe even the spirit, the gut, the intuition releasing in layers too. We know the phrase, the body keeps the score. Well, and the body also releases in these layers. So from that moment of realization, I'm a runaway. Every time I think of my adolescent self, I feel more of a softness, more of a motherly love from my heart. I didn't know that I didn't have this positive sort of loving softness for her. I didn't know that I wanted or needed this softening. But once this realization happened, it's as if another layer comes off. Like when you're too hot and you take off your jacket. My body feels lighter, easier, more integrated. Realizations will happen like this across the lifespan of anyone who's had a difficult youth. Don't let the critical voice ever tell you you were blind, dense, falling therapeutically short, or that you're some kind of slow learner. To only have the realization now all these years later. I hope you can see and feel I'm none of those things. I'm actually a fast learner and a fast changer, which is exactly why it's easy to judge myself right here. I am healing from a compounded grief, and it lets go when we allow it to, layer by layer. And in some ways, it's not in my complete control, though I can control doing the work, but I can't exactly control when the layers show themselves and let go. It's the question, how do we eat this elephant-sized grief? Of our childhood homes being more like manipulative or critical war zones than soft places to fall? Than to get and give love? How do we eat this grief elephant? One bite, one realization at a time. One of the things I'm most excited about for 2025 is that I have made my first physical, tangible product. It is my Patternscapes deck. It is a mindfulness and meditation deck that, just like my work, just like you've come to know of me, I give you actionable things for you to do the emotional strength training that will bring you to the internal integration and the emotional strength training that helps you feel more secure, more grounded, more peaceful, lighter, and easier. The deck contains 50 cards and a 70-page workbook, so you can dive just as deeply as you'd like. Feedback from Patternscapes has been that it is me in a box, that people have been shocked at how impactful this deck is to their lives. I've even had someone say, wow, this is finally key to me quitting smoking cigarettes. If you would like a tangible that you can take out and hold when you are having a struggle, when you are strength training, this is it. Come to getpatternscapes.com or go to emotionalbadass.com to order yours today. Shipping is free, and if you want 2 or 3 to give as gifts, we have significant discounts for you. Light and love, and I hope you all continue to have fun with Patternscapes. Second thing I noticed in reflection. As I said earlier in the episode, it's part of my belief system that humans were always meant to pass wisdom down in story form. Sharing wisdom, not by controlling others or telling people what to do or shooting at them, but in truly encompassing the energy of sharing, just sharing our own stories and learning how we're similar and different. We need those things valued fairly equally, in my opinion. We're living through a time where it's getting encouraged by social media to create echo chambers, which means we're in groups where, yeah, it's great to learn from people who are similar. You're listening to me because we have similarity. But it's equally important that we don't shut down to difference. And when we see and feel difference in others, we don't go, oh, that's not my person to learn from. Instead, that we go, wow, what is there for me to learn from this difference just as much as from our similarity? So we pick up little wisdoms, we pick up little life hacks from each other when we share and listen to story. I really believe this is why we have fables throughout time. It's why this sort of behavioral archetype of reading children fables and stories at night to put them to bed is such a divine part of the fabric of humanity across almost all cultures. I think story is necessary for a good, solid life, a good, solid relationship with our own mental health, is that we need to hear enough story. I don't mean housewives type reality shows where people are screaming at each other and their immaturity is on display. I mean stories from people that are solid for themselves in their lives. I think story are like vitamins, like vitamin D and magnesium. They're like essential amino acids that the mind, the body, the heart, the intuition needs to function properly. What if that is the big collective struggle in the West? What if these are our vitamin deficiencies? So yes, as corny as it sounds, I hope that my content is akin to a vitamin to meet these storied deficiencies of our mental, emotional, and spiritual sides. Money. Today is about student loan debt, money, and our missteps with it are often not talked about. Everybody is out there as a coach talking about, oh, make $1 million this way, that way. This is how I made the big bucks, right? There are reasons you don't see me saying that. But if there is someone you know struggling, not just with student loans before or after they get them, but with relationship to money, please share this episode because it's in the story so much more than the information. Even if that sounds a little backwards in this moment, I ask you to just consider that as an idea as you move through life. I also want to say that after dealing with the court system as a crime victim, after being legally adopted as a teenager, so I witnessed the process of adoption and remember being in the judges' chambers, after going through 2 divorces in 2 different state systems, after going through getting FEMA assistance when I was 25 and Katrina hit New Orleans, after getting 2 degrees from a state school where I was supposed to have some Pell Grants and some funding, the school who also dealt with Katrina fallout. And after having almost 2 decades of a career and listening to the lives, the experiences, and the stories of my clients, and what you will hear in this episode about my student loan debt, if you listen all the way through, I won't, and I'm not saying don't, I am saying I won't believe that government has our best interest in mind. I know there are players in all of our systems, in all throughout the government, that do have the very best intentions on the individual level. I just have come to believe through experience that the systems are too big, they're too bureaucratic, too available for way too much fraud and deception and corruption to really be for the American people. There's a lot of truth to the phrase, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So wants, desires, and good intention, it takes more than that. That's why we need to bring maturity and learn what it is on the individual level and the collective societal level to mature and be able to see more of the truth of things as we make choices for our lives. You can take this viewpoint or toss it. Know that because I work with the inner child, the way that I see many people's inner child out there in our larger American community is that I believe the collective inner child wants the government to be like a helpful parent and take care of us. I think this comes from a lot of wounding, a lot of emotional wounding in people that are not highly sensitive, that would not like my show or my content. This is an idea. And no matter what you believe, I want you to know that when you listen to someone's beliefs, you have every right to listen, to consider, but also to hold on to your own as you make that consideration. When our inner child wants an authority figure, it also sets us up to be manipulated by people who act like the authority figure. This is part of why I use the language, we are our own authority figure. There are no white knights coming to save us so much in what I teach. If we are to be able to make well-informed decisions for ourselves, our mental health, our money, our financial lives, our retirements, we must be willing and able to see things as they have been and as they are, instead of these forced ideals and wishes of the psychology of the inner child. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being open to any way that my content works to help your mind, your heart, your mental health, your life, your finances, your world. I am looking forward to some feedback on our Patreon on how it felt to revisit an old episode with me, through me, or maybe for the first time if you're new. On to the show.
This is a really important topic. We have so many problems around money in this country. If college and student loan debt doesn't apply to you or bores you, I hope that you can listen, because I'm sure you're going to come into contact with someone who is either facing this struggle or in the struggle or not knowing what to do. Someone you know may want to listen. So I want to share my experience of college and student loans. I want to talk about money, even though it still scares me almost more than any topic on the show. But I want to do it as a person who has zero authority on money and finances. I am not financially advising anyone here, and I am not qualified for that in the least. But I think that's exactly where most of us are, is that we don't even know what we don't know when it comes to money. One of the problems about debt and spending in college in this country is that people talk about finances in the shadows and in whispers. You know, it's not proper to discuss finances. So many of us have been taught that. How are we supposed to learn? It's my belief that no one gets through an American life without accidentally flushing a whole lot of money down the toilet. It's part of learning and growing and making mistakes. And mistakes for the sake of learning, I'm fine with. Mistakes because we aren't showing younger people and younger generations and each other our money cards so that we can all be making more well-informed decisions, wiser decisions, and feel empowered to discuss these issues of money in relationship with our partners, with ourselves, and even within our friendships. I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet and not get lost in the details. Some of my memories are spotty and my numbers are very general because my younger self lost most original paperwork during Katrina. And I'm not the best with paper. And I come from a time when I started student loans where we were starting to do things online, but it was a lot of paperwork that we still had to organize and understand. And it boggled my mind. It needs to be noted that in all the people who have allowed me into this delicate college debt discussion, that I have taken the least amount of student loan debt than anyone I have ever had this discussion with. That goes for colleagues in my life that have gone through a similar level of education, similar programs to me. And those are clients through the years who have gone through every form of education. I originally took out $16,000 in student loans over the entire course of an undergraduate degree and a graduate degree. That's an unheard of amount, y'all. I started college in 1998. I had a scholarship for 4 full years of undergraduate work. A program started in Louisiana the year I was going to school. I was the first wave of recipients of this TOPS program. I would not be on this mic with this career if it wasn't for the Louisiana Taylor Plan, which became a law as the result of Mr. Patrick F. Taylor's educational initiatives. From what I understand, he was just a rich guy in Louisiana that just wanted to support Louisiana students getting a college education. It was the first state-funded merit-based college tuition program in the country. I was a strong student. I was a good student. But I also had a lot of stress and a lot of chaos, and I had to work outside of school to earn money. So I wasn't an elite student. This program required a minimum of 18 on the ACT and to earn a 2.5 grade point average. And every Louisiana college student that fit those requirements could get their tuition paid. I sometimes worked 70 hours a week waitressing as an undergraduate. I was pulling a few A's, some B's, and some C's. I was falling asleep in my classes. I was burning the candle at both ends. After my jaw surgery, during my first marriage, I stopped working for the 5th year that it took me because I couldn't finish in 4 years. And so that 5th year, I took out $1,500 for tuition. That's what a semester cost at the University of New Orleans for undergraduate when I started. And I took a little bit, maybe $500 or $1,000, I don't remember, but just to cover books. So I did that each semester. I finished my undergraduate, and then I began graduate school. Now, graduate school at UNO, I went to the same school, got accepted into the program, was also $1,500 for a full-time semester. I took a mix of subsidized and unsubsidized government loans. And those terms, I get irritated even when I see those terms, because as I define them, that subsidized means that the interest is paid by the education department while you're enrolled in at least half-time in school. Unsubsidized means the interest begins to accrue to build up as soon as the loan is dispersed, including while you're still in school. So you're in school, you're not making any money yet, or you're barely making ends meet just to get through school, yet interest is starting to build on your life. And these terms irritate me because even though these are defined for a college student that is signing at the young age of 18, there is no way that an 18, 19, or 20-year-old understands the impact of the definitions of those terms, the impact of having interest accrue. I was in school for about a decade. That's a long time to have interest accruing. I didn't understand this at the time, didn't really know what it meant, didn't know the impact. I began undergraduate school in 1998 and I began graduate school in 2003. Rates for both of those degrees for me were $1,500 a semester. That's $3,000 for a typical 2-semester college experience or college year. As I began graduate school, I took out student loans to cover that amount, not to cover living expenses, not to cover anything extra. So I was really trying to do this in a responsible, bare bones kind of way. I wanted to look up what the current rates are for college. For the kind of school that I went to, the current average state public college costs about $10,000 a year. That's more than triple. Out of state colleges, $25,000 a year. So those of you that are getting or want or are interested in that out of state experience, 2.5 times the in-state experience. That's just the tuition, y'all. That's not gas and car insurance and food and insurance and health care and all the incidentals it takes to cover life. A private college tuition for the year, average $35,000. Now, as happens in our early life when we are becoming adults and figuring things out, I wasn't mess-free. I went through a divorce, and part of our agreement when we were separated was that my tuition would be covered by him. It wasn't. I had to drop out mid-semester. And I remember going to the dean of the department saying, I'm so close to finishing. I don't understand. Can I do a payment plan for the last part of the semester? And he was so cold to me. Nope. I was already working about 70 hours a week. I was so burnt out and fried just trying to survive and trying to get through and trying to better my life. I remember him looking at me saying, well, get another job then. This was from a counseling program. So I dropped out. I thought, okay, I'll drop out. There were only a few really weeks, maybe a month left of the semester. I'll take the next semester off. I will hump it. I will save money. And then I will get right back into school and finish this up. And that was the semester that Hurricane Katrina hit in New Orleans. I was so close to having been done the 60 hours master program. In addition to the 60 school hours, I was also required to become a counselor to do 3,000 hours of unpaid internship. 1,500 hours of that were face-to-face counseling appointments with no pay. Now, working full-time as a professional now, in a very slow year, I've been doing this 10 years working for myself. In a very slow year, I would have 500 sessions in a year. Now I have anywhere from 800 to 1,000 in a year. So this is years of requirement of work without compensation. This is why so many of my colleagues have 6-figure student loan debt in a field that average pay is barely above the poverty level. I was depressed from having walked away from my marriage with the literal clothes on my back. I didn't even leave that marriage with a vehicle. I left without $1. Then I had to get out of school. Then Katrina hit. Sometimes I look back on that time in my life and I can only believe that angels and spirit was helping me through. When I came back to New Orleans shortly after Katrina, I was still enrolled at UNO to do internship. I picked up an internship, again, not paid. My college program was blown out of the water. The professors were gone. The students were gone. They weren't teaching classes. I was desperate to finish this master's degree. Without a professor who supported me and pulled for me and had through my whole program, without excellent teachers rooting for me that I have been able to have my whole life since kindergarten, I don't know that I would have made it through. But a professor helped me figure out I could do the last 2 classes at Capella University online. Awesome, I thought. Okay, 2 classes, I can afford that. I was heartbroken to learn that Capella cost for 1 class what an entire semester cost. So it was like I had to pay for 2 more semesters just to finish. I had no option and took out a couple more thousand student loans. Eventually, I graduated in 2007, and my internship site picked me up and hired me. In that time, I had allowed my student loans in the next 6 months to just lapse. I hadn't filled out the right paperwork. Everything. It was just, I couldn't handle it. And I know many of you listening have had times in your life where you just could not deal with the amount of things that are happening. And we just compartmentalize to survive, don't we? And I did that with these student loans. It was a nightmare to try to get official documents and identification when everything had been lost and people weren't working. It was chaos. So, on the advice of someone that I listened to, because I didn't know where else to turn, I made a very large financial mistake and filed for bankruptcy at about 25 or 26 years old for $7,000 on credit cards, and to be able to refinance my student loans. This is what the bankruptcy lawyer brought to me. And what that lawyer brought to me was that there was a debt relief federal student loan program. I didn't understand the details of it. They had me at the words debt relief, and I signed. What started out as $16,000 in student loan debt, with fees and penalties, quickly became $24,000 by the time that bankruptcy went through. Now you can't get out of student loan debt in a bankruptcy, y'all. But I thought, oh, it's consolidated. It's all in one place. I'll just make the payments, $24,000. That's what a new car costs for a lot of people, and people pay that off. So this is not crazy. I am in good shape. For years, I did not understand that loan. Come to find out, the government's debt relief program was a program of daily compounded interest. Now, if you don't quite know what that means, like I didn't know what that meant back then, and I painfully know what this means now, I have been told that if you borrow money from the mob, they compound interest on a weekly basis. The student loan debt relief program, for me, compiled it daily. All I did for years was pay interest. And each day the interest gets put back into the loan, so you pay interest on top of the interest. I wouldn't know the first way to figure out how much I've actually paid back. In addition to me being wholly ignorant about how all of this works, loans get sold over and over and over again. If you're young enough that you've never had a loan, they sell them. And you just have new login information and a new person to pay. And you kind of lose the old information as you go, especially if you're not great with paperwork, like has been historically true for me. Compounded daily interest is a predatory loan practice. A few years ago, that misguided bankruptcy for $7,000, which I was just scared at the time. I didn't know what to do with creditors calling me. I couldn't handle it on top of prosecuting my dad and Hurricane Katrina and everything else, a divorce. So after that bankruptcy fell off, it takes 10 years. I had worked very hard in that time to never miss a payment, to build my credit back up, to be responsible, because I am a very responsible person with money. The fact that this could happen to me says a lot, because I do try to pay attention. I'm not willy-nilly, and I don't just burn money on impulse buys. Once that bankruptcy fell off and my credit clicked over into the excellent category, I was so proud and so relieved. I marched up to the bank and I said, hey, I want a $10,000 loan to pay off the rest of my student loan debt. I've been paying it off for years and years and years and years, and it just won't go down. It's awful interest. I need to get off of it. The loan officer was new. She said, okay, great. She said, well, ask me a couple questions. And she sat down at the computer. I said, I have excellent credit. I should be able to get a loan for $10,000, right? She's like, yep. As she started answering the questions through her system, the very first question was, is this about student loan debt? Once she said yes, all of my options went out the window. The government holds a monopoly on being able to hold that debt. So despite my excellent credit, I was told that I could not get money from the bank to pay off that predatory loan. I was so angry. I looked at the woman and I said, but I can come in here and tell you that I want to go to Europe and I want $10,000 and you'll give it to me in a second. And she said, yes, you can get a loan for that. I looked at her and I said, okay, kind of wink, wink. This isn't about student loan debt. I want to go to Europe. Give me $10,000. And she looked at me and said, I can't ethically do that. And I said, ethically? I said, this is the problem with the system, that nothing about this is ethical. And nice people like you work for these unethical organizations, and the moment that someone wants to get ethical is right now. It's very hard to be ethical and work for an evil system. So if you want to do something ethical, you might want to look into something different than this banking, because what you're doing with me right now is not ethical. I have since paid off my student loans. I wish there was a way to calculate the amount of stress that it cost me, the amount of tears that I have cried trying to figure it out, the times I tried to get different loans and got rejected, but didn't have it explained to me that that was the government's doing, that they held the monopoly on this debt, that I had signed up for it in a very vulnerable place. I was not informed of how the debt would go. I am fully responsible for not understanding and reading the fine print, as we are all responsible for what we do and what we don't do, and what we know and what we don't know. I started college in 1998, and it took me to 2018 to pay them off. That started out as $16,000. We need to talk more about the realities of college and student loan debt. There is a toll on our individual and collective health. Children are feeling these stresses of their parents. We are setting up Americans to be unable to get ahead of this debt. I'm sharing this vulnerable part of my story because I'm listening to parents that are taking on debt or telling their kids it's okay to take on debt without fully understanding how this works. I believe my age people who started college 1997, 1998, 1999, the early 2000s, before that, student loan debt was not predatory. We were the first wave of getting slammed by trying to better ourselves. We have to help young people figure this out so that they do not drown. I hope by me sharing my messy and vulnerable story that this gets to the right ears. It's a hard question for me to answer. Do I think it was worth it? I'm where I want to be. I can't argue with that. I did get a stellar education, but I received an incomplete education. I am in a field where to make a decent living, people must work for themselves. That program had nothing about running a business. Nothing. And many counseling programs continue to offer nothing when it comes to running your own business. High schools continue to offer no education about debt, about finances, about college being less about what you want to learn and more about a path to income. I am not saying to not go to college. I am saying to please learn from my missteps and my mistakes and from the tragedy of what can happen when we're overwhelmed and when we're desperate for help, that we will listen to things and to people and to information that doesn't have our best interest in mind. Figuring out the government's relationship with student loans this way has really changed my relationship with how I see our government. And this is not a political show, but my emotional development, the things that have hurt me, the things that have made life harder than it just needed to be, it's forced me to see things in ways that I never would have otherwise. Because of this, I feel like I've had the veils lifted, that I really don't believe that the government is there to take care of me. The government is an organization. The government takes a lot of our money. And the more I have faced that as my own reality, the more I've been able to take care of myself in the ways that I've needed, with eyes wide open. I wish I had a different truth about that. I wish a government debt relief program was what it says it is, and it's not. Sociopathy and narcissism run through our biggest, most powerful corporations and our biggest, most powerful government. We must be wiser than these systems, and we must use the knowledge that each of us gathers, because life is too short for every individual to have to go through this to be able to squeeze out the wisdom. I cringe to think how student debt may influence depression, suicidal thoughts, and suicidal acts. I wonder how we will ever study enough to really understand the results of this. If you have a way to share your voice or your story, I hope that by listening to me share, you will feel empowered to share your financial truth with more people. It's been one of the greatest gifts in my life to have chosen family and friends where we can talk very clearly about the financial decisions that we are making. Even though we're very different people and we have different priorities, and some of these people have children and some don't, some are older, some are younger, but we're talking about it to learn from and with each other. That is a very good, powerful thing to come out of some awful financial experiences. Maybe there's something in your life financially that you've put up blinders to that you don't want to look at because it's scary. Maybe by hearing me, I can offer you some courage so you can face in your life what you've been avoiding, or so you can know the value in doing research and fully understanding your financial options now and always, not just when it comes to college or student loan debt. Financial health is a huge part of being an emotional badass. It's the world that we live in. A long time ago, my clients, they might have paid me with goats and eggs and milk. We need to understand this money, this currency that is such a big player in our lives. Thank you for holding space for me to share this story. I hope there's something in it that helps you wherever you are. If you would like to come ask me some direct questions about this, I will answer anything that you ask as specifically as I can. Nothing's off limits here. Come find us at patreon.com/emotionalbadass. We are working very, very hard. We give an extra episode that you don't get here on the feed on that Patreon every single month. And we are working towards our next goal to try to get a little more help with the show, a little bit more help of handling all that it takes behind the scenes, social media, graphics, editing. We would like to move into releasing video on top of this audio. So if you would like to participate and really consider yourself a producer and backbone of the show, come to Patreon. You can share as little as $1 with us a month to different tiers, up to $5 and $10 and $20. You get different content from us at different levels, and we appreciate every single dollar. It adds up. It's not inconsequential. I hope with each episode, I honor those of you who are supporting us. Y'all have truly been the backbone of the show. Thank you for helping us reach more people every single week. I want all of us to be financially wiser, because we can be. We owe that to ourselves to grow that part of ourselves too.
Thank you so much for listening. If you would like to be part of the discussion, maybe it's time to join our Patreon, where you can get commercial-free episodes. You can chime in to some of the discussions that happen there. You can participate in our live stream Q&As. Our very next one is on writing, how you can use the art of writing to help yourself in your recovery and as a highly sensitive person. So if you want to come hang out and just watch, or come hang out and throw in a question, come find us at patreon.com/emotionalbadass. So come give me some feedback on what it was like to have a throwback episode, so we can know if you want more of these. If you don't, I'm open to any and all feedback now and always. May we all make more grounded, more self-respecting, wiser financial decisions. I'm an emotional badass. You are an emotional badass. And together, we are where Moxie meets mindful. I'll see you right here next time. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.